Hello YouTube, today I'm going to be changing my transmission fluid on my 2008 Chevy Silverado 3500. It is equipped with an Allison 1000, so I'll be replacing the inner filter that goes in the oil pan and the outer filter. And since I'm going to be changing the inner filter, I might as well do a shift kit from TransGo Jr to help firm up the shifts and make this transmission last longer. Last time I did transmission fluid change was about 5 years ago, so it's long overdue. Hopefully my transmission still runs after all of this. I'm going to teach you guys how to change it and the steps to on installing the TransGo Jr shift kit. The first step I'll be doing is removing the drain plug to drain out all the oil, which is a 15 millimeter. Then I'll be removing the oil pan, which is the transmission oil pan, which is held on by 13 millimeter bolts all around, and then that will let me drop the pan. But first I'm going to drop the oil to not make too much of a mess. And also I'll be inspecting how dirty the oil is as it comes out. There we go. As you guys can see, hopefully through the video, it's nice and red. It has a little bit of darkness to it. Doesn't smell burnt at all, so that means my transmission oil is pretty good. While that's draining, I'll take off the spin-on filter that's on the front of the transmission so it can start draining too. And spin-off filter is removed. Just put that on backwards, let it drain out. Be careful when you pull out the spin-on filter because they do have a magnet inside. Let me pull it out. And sometimes it does get caught on the filter and comes off with the filter. As you can see, the magnet's right here. It has some clutch material, but nothing too bad to be worried about. Normal clutch wear and tear. I'm gonna set it down here and then clean it off once I'm cleaning off the oil pan. While it's still draining, I'll start it by removing the oil pan bolts and just leave it at 1 or 2 at the very end before dropping it. And as you guys can hopefully see, the pan has almost ran out of fluid, so we're getting close. Sorry for the loud noise, felt the impact. Since it's very minimal that's dropping right now, it's a nice steady stream, but it's still very minimal. I'm gonna put the plug back in just so I can finish removing all the other plugs, and I'll just simply turn over the pan once I remove it to empty out all the excess oil that's left. A little tug, or as soon as you loosen up the last bolt, it drops down by itself. Hold it just in case, and as you can see, it popped off by itself. So all I have to do is bring it down slowly and drain it, finish draining it. This is my inner filter. I'm just gonna pull it straight down and it should come off. Sometimes I find that wiggling it back and forth will ease it and help you take it out. Now that the pan's removed, I'll be removing the wiring harness. Not removing it completely, just pulling it out of the valve body. And then I'll be moving it out of the way and pulling this pressure manifold switch off and this too. Then that'll give me access to remove all the necessary bolts to drop the whole valve body down out of the transmission case. And for that, I need a screwdriver, a flathead, and then flathead for the plugs. You got to be very careful so they won't break. And then 8 millimeter to pull out the valve body. Start by removing the plugs. Like I said, don't rush. You don't want to be want to break any of these pins, any of these retainer clips, I mean. You gotta pull these clips. Whoops, and be careful because they have some spring tension that hold the wiring harness onto the valve body, which also holds your, as you can see, which also holds your shift solenoids in place in the valve body. The reason I decided to go with the TransGo Jr shift kit is it helps hold line pressure a little bit better, which prolongs the life of your clutches. And I was already dropping the transmission oil pan, might as well, you know, change or upgrade my transmission valve body to help it prolong the life. And you got to be careful, there's one more shift solenoid up here. There we go. Wiring harness is removed from the valve body, and I'll just leave it dangling. It's not in my way. Next step, as I said, is removing the pressure solenoid, pressure manifold pressure sensor. Remember, chrome bolt goes on the top, next to the plug on the right side or left side, depending on how you're pulling your transmission apart. Goes on this one. All the rest are black. Hey guys, the instructions didn't really say what bolts to take off, so I went onto my online and found a diagram of which bolts to remove to pull off the valve body, because I could, if I wanted to, in theory, pull all of them off, but then that runs the risk of splitting the valve body in half on the truck, and I want to split it in half outside of the truck. Let's get started. Now the valve body is ready to remove. After I removed all the bolts that hold the valve body to the case, now all you want to do is wiggle it carefully and be sure not to drop it. And remove down to one side because you have your manual shift selector that goes onto the valve body. Whoops. Sorry guys, I moved you guys. Let me remove the valve body and I'll fix the camera up once I finish. And when removing the valve body, be careful, don't try to use a screwdriver to pry it down, because you will mess up where it mates to the case and it will not seat properly anymore. Now that the valve body is removed from the transmission, I'll be removing the remaining screws, except for this one, and I believe one of these is a shorty, and that will hold on to the where the shift kit is going to be installed at TransGo Jr. If I were to remove this first, they're spring loaded and they would pop off, and I would not be having a good day. So I'll leave those at last. should be able to split this in half. Like I said, some lines pop off. Try to keep them where they came off of and the orientation they came off of. So. Split in half. I'll move this off to the side and keep it face down so none of the bolts come off. And you gotta be careful because there's two little plungers in here where we pull the strings off. Set it down gently because this is where you're setting it down is your mating surface. So mid plate. On the mid plate, we're going to be drilling some holes out. In the instructions, it says where to drill, and they provide the drill bit to drill. But first, I'm going to clean everything up. Then I'll get to drilling this. Then I'll be removing the springs. Another reason I am doing the shift kit on my truck is it's starting to hit. It could be just because of the maintenance of the filters that they were dirty. But like I said, I was already in there changing filters. The part on Amazon was $60. I'm going to set it off to the side. Just be careful because it does take a little filter. I removed it to clean it out and I'll be putting it back in once I finish cleaning it. What I use to clean these parts is just gasoline, and this one don't use Scotch-Brite or anything. Just rub your hand and pour some gasoline and it'll clean right off. Don't use Scotch-Brite or anything because you can scratch up the surface, then it won't seal properly. Now that everything's cleaned off, set this off to the side. And I'm gonna begin by drilling out the mid plate where the instructions tell me to drill it out with the drill bit that is provided. As the instruction says, I need to drill out these two holes. So I'll be grabbing the drill bit they provided and locating them on the mid plate, which is orientated like this. So it'll be this hole and oops. See? You gotta make sure how you have it because you'll be drilling out the wrong holes and it won't work how it's supposed to. It'll be this hole and this hole. So I'll grab a little marker, mark it, and then drill it out. And you don't want to go too crazy on it. You want to drill it and make sure the drill is the bit size. Don't circle it, don't do anything, and then just clean off the axis so that won't be running through your transmission. Mid plate is done. I drilled the 2 holes where the instruction said, which was here and here. I cleaned off the burrs and I didn't enlarge them. So this is ready to go back on the bottom plate. And now I just have to change out the focus. Just have to change out these shift valves that go in the upper portion of the valve body. And I'll be doing that right now. Now these shift valves are different, so don't get them confused. One has a rib in the middle and the other one doesn't. So keep those aside and be careful when opening these bags because there's a little spring and a ball bearing in here. So the ones that are going to be are these 2. And since I removed the shift solenoids already, they should come out pretty easily. Just have to push them out or grab a magnet and they'll come right out. One's out. And what we'll be replacing is this back portion. Just make sure the instructions. And yes, we'll be replacing these 2. So these 2 will be discarded, but I'll keep them just in case. And remember, that has a rib, so we gotta install the one with the rib. Like piston, spring, smaller spring, and check valve. Check valve goes inside the piston. Spring, smaller spring inside, then bigger spring around it. Then you assemble it all back together using the front half the same. To test it, I just give it a couple of pumps to make sure it's not seizing up anywhere. It's not, so we're good to go. Valve body is complete. Now I just have to put everything back together. Well, you guys, I didn't realize my camera had stopped recording, but I have the valve body all built up, so you guys can see that. It's all torqued down and everything. It's ready to go back into the truck. So I'll be showing you guys. I'll be mounting it back up and putting the cleaned oil pan back in. The next step I'll be showing you guys is me adding the oil onto the truck, adding the fluid into the truck, adding the additive, and starting it back up, making sure everything shifts perfectly fine. New oil filter, the outside filter, inside filter is done, oil pan, valve body is torqued. Now all I have to do is add about 7 quarts through the check tube or through the dipstick tube of trans fluid. I'm gonna be using Wolfhead synthetic. It's what I always use, and I'll be using an additive. It doesn't need it, but it doesn't hurt. It won't hurt. So I'll be adding this additive and about 7 quarts to start off. And then we'll go turn on the truck and be checking the fluid if it needs more or less.
Invincible.
truck is topped off. I just need to add 2 more quarts of transmission fluid, but she's ready to go. All I have to do is drive it around so the TCM can relearn the new shift points and enjoy my new transmission. Well, not new transmission, but freshened up transmission. Thanks for sticking to the end. Hope this video helps you guys out, and have a nice day. Well guys, here's the update of the shift kit from TransGo Jr. that I installed on my 2008 Chevy Silverado 3500. So far the shifts have been nice and smooth, firm. I like how it's been shifting. I get some hiccups here and there, but my tranny had way more hiccups than it used to before the shift kit, so I'm very happy with it. And I know in the future tranny has to be rebuilt, but for the meantime it's a band-aid and it works. It makes the shift so much better. So if you guys are on the edge of buying one of these shift kits for your guys' vehicle, you should I highly recommend it. It's a wonderful piece, and it's a peace of mind that helps your tranny. It's not gonna hurt it in any way but prolong the life of your tranny. So have a nice day, you guys.